بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So one of the final topics that the author of مفاهيم يجب أن تصحح, may Allah show mercy upon him, he talks about the concept of bid'ah, and it's an important topic to talk about. And in reality, the whole discussion of bid'ah, or the ittirab in it, the inconsistency and the extremism in it, all stems from lack of ta'addudiyya, right? There's a lack of pluralism. So if somebody understands that the deen can be understood in more than one way, they're not going to be very strict about this issue. If somebody does not understand that the deen can be understood in more than one way, then they are going to be strict on this issue. Furthermore, if they don't believe in the ummah, they don't have faith in the ummah, meaning they look at the ummah as scholars who are flea-bitten, who are at best well-intended but not very good, right? As opposed to they look to the imams of the ummah and they understand that the deen has been preserved and that specifically there are four madhahib and that specifically there are authorities in those four madhahib, and that when you say this is a bid'ah, you are saying a falsifiable point, right? It's falsifiable, meaning it's not just my opinion, your opinion. In reality, we can actually open up the books and prove it or disprove it, meaning there are authorities to go back to, right? It's not just my opinion, your opinion, or it's, and so basically the system today is, in a very, very nebulous sense, this is wrong because the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it, right? Which is the argument, or the Prophet or the Sahaba didn't do it. Um, so, or, I mean, not even that, not even the Sahaba didn't do it, just the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it. And so it's very inaccurate and grossly does not reflect the system of the Imams or anything. And this issue of bid'ah is much broader than you could imagine. Um, so anyway, I want to talk about that slightly, and I just wanted to give a few examples. We spoke last week about this issue about kissing bread and about honoring bread in a way the Prophet ﷺ did not tell us specifically to honor. And is that okay? Is that not okay, etc. I just wanted to share some examples. There's countless examples from the Salaf about this issue. But the first issue is Taraweeh, right? So Taraweeh is a problem in that the Prophet ﷺ did not pray. Like he I guess not such a major problem. You could argue that the Prophet ﷺ showed us to pray the group prayer in groups, right? He did pray, he did lead the Sahaba in a group prayer in Ramadan. And so that is legislation, that it's not just, you're not just praying in general, but specifically praying in Jama'ah, right? In Ramadan, and specifically making it a certain number of rakats, etc. And we have the very, very important and famous quote in Sahih Bukhari, alhamdulillah, in Sahih Bukhari from Sayyidina Umar saying, Ni'matu al-bid'atu, uh, Ni'matil bid'atu hadhihi. What a wonderful bid'ah this is. So he's identifying what he did of gathering all the Muslims together behind one Imam in Taraweeh as a bid'ah. And he's identifying it as good, right? So that's fundamental, right? Like if the Prophet ﷺ drank wine once in his life, that would be fundamental, because then we'd ask the question, well, why on earth did that happen? That surely changes everything we understand about it. So when you have that statement, ni'matil bid'atu hadhihi, what a wonderful bid'ah this is, this totally flies in the face of the idea that every single thing that the Prophet ﷺ didn't specifically do is wrong, right? Because here Sayyidina Umar is identifying it as new and then labeling it as good, right? And so it is not like that. However, again, why do we have this hardcore and but unfortunately unrefined and unsystematized response is overkill, right? When your world, when you know when people react to things, right? People react to things when there's a lack of balance, and it's something we mentioned again and again and again, and when there's lack of ilmi things, and when bid'ah, when certain things, when certain people, certain times you find people generally doing genuine bid'ah that the ulama have labeled as bid'ah, then they are going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and they are going to say every single thing is wrong here. There's going to be an overreaction, right? So it's important to understand that. And I was going to mention something analogous to this, which was, oh yes, Nuh ibn Abi Maryam, I believe his name was. I might be mistaken. He made up hadiths, right? He said he noticed that basically everybody's interested in studying fiqh. Nobody's interested in the seerah, but nobody's reciting Quran. So he made up a hadith for every single surah of the Quran. The benefit of reciting Surah Al-A'raf, the benefit of reciting this. So what you'll find is all these hadiths where it says, whoever recites this surah will have this reward. Whoever recites this surah will have this reward. And it's very encouraging. And it does make you want to recite Quran more. However, why did he do that? What did he do? Is he invented hadith, which is totally haram, right? He fabricated hadith. And again, why? So why did he react in this way? I'm not saying that the way he reacted is right, but I'm saying, what is he reacting to? He's reacting to, a, a lack of concern for the Quran. So that's a real problem. So people react to problems. Now, their reaction not necessarily correct, but they do react to problems. So we can't ignore the problem. Um, So before we start looking through the book very briefly, I want to look at just some examples. I was trying to find an example in the wrong book, so I apologize. I'm like, why can't I find this thing? Um, the issue is because I'm half asleep, um, and I'm not thinking properly. So Alhamdulillah, may Allah make us uh, awake, inshallah, spiritually and mentally. So this is the dua that I wanted to find. So here um, in the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Imam Malik quotes from Hisham ibn Urwa from Urwa ibn Zubayr. So Urwa ibn Zubayr one of the tabi'een, right? Nephew of Aisha. أنه كان لا يأتي لا يؤتى أبدا بطعام ولا شراب حتى الدواء آه، ف فيطعمه أو يشربه طعم يطعم فيطعمه أو يطعمه أو يشربه, right? So he said he would never be brought food or drink, even some kind of medicine, and then be fed it, or then eat it, or then be given it to drink, or then drink it. إلا قال, save that he would say, he would invent a dua, and this dua, as far as you know, is not from the Prophet ﷺ. He used to say a long dua before eating. He would say, Alhamdulillah alladhi hadana wa at'amana wa saqana wa na'amana. Right? He would say, all praise be to Allah who has guided us and who has fed us and has given us a drink and has made our lives luxurious. Allahu Akbar. Allahumma um, alaftana ni'matika. You have made us, uh, uh, you have spoiled us with this blessing. Bikulli sharrin. With every single evil, presumably in spite of every single evil from ourselves. Allahu A'lam. فأصبحنا منها وأمسينا بكل خير. And we have, in spite of that, we have entered the morning and entered the evening. Day and night we come and we find all these blessings. بكل خير. Uh, ah, no. الفتنا, not ألفتنا. الفتنا نعمتك بكل شر. Your blessings have found us, alfa yulfi, to find, with every evil. Right? When your blessing comes to us, it finds all these evil things that we're doing. فأصبحنا منها وأمسينا بكل خير. And in spite of that, فَتَعْكِيس, and in spite of that, we have entered the morning and entered the evening with every single good. فَنَسْأَلُكَ تَمَامَهَا وَشُكْرَهَا. So we ask the completeness of that blessing, and we ask that you make us thankful for it. لا خير إلا خيرك. There is no good except your good. لا إله غيرك. There is no God but you. إله الصالحين ورب العالمين. The God of the righteous and the God of all, the Lord of all worlds. الحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله ما شاء الله ولا قوة إلا بالله. There is no, all praise be to Allah, and there's no God but Allah. Whatever Allah wills happens. And there is no strength nor power except from Allah. Allahumma barik lana fima razaqtana wa qina adhab an-nar. And he used to say, oh Allah, bless us in that which you have provided for us, and protect us from the hellfire. So this whole dua here, Allahu alam, so this is a tabi'i. He's not saying that the Prophet ﷺ said it, and that the assumption is he didn't. So why is he saying this? And he's not just doing this once off. Okay, you can say any dua you want, but he's doing this every single day, almost ritualistically. And this is a key point. Almost ritualistically, he's doing that every single time he's saying things. So this is not a bid'ah in the dunya. This is a bid'ah in the deen. Okay, and he's doing it not just once. He's doing it every single time, a particular dua. So coming up with a particular dua at a particular time is totally fine, right? Enough time to find the dua. Similarly, saying Anas radiallahu anhu, gathering his family every single time he would do every single time he would finish a khatam of the Quran, he would gather his family to make dua. That's a bid'ah. Did the Prophet ﷺ do that? Do we hear that the Prophet ﷺ, every single time he would finish the Quran, he would gather his family and make dua? I don't think so. So that's again a bid'ah in dua. Here's an even bigger bid'ah than that, right? On Umrah, on Hajj. So here is the labbaik, right? So Imam Malik narrates from Nafi' from Ibn Umar. Ibn Umar, one of the strictest people when it comes to bid'ah. He said, أن تلبية النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك. قال وكان ابن عمر وكان عبد الله بن عمر يزيد فيها لبيك 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 وسعديك والخير بيديك والرغباء إليك والعمل. So he used to, so it says, Malik informed us from Nafit. So this is just super strong chain as well. That Abdullah ibn Umar said, the talbiyah of the Prophet ﷺ, what the Prophet used to say when he used to go on Hajj and Umrah was, Labbaik, I at your service, O Allah, at your service. At your service you have no partner. At your service, the praise and blessings are yours, and the kingdom, you have no partner. Nafi' said, and Abdullah ibn Umar used to add to this. He used to, so it wasn't just say it once. He used to do this. He used to add, he used to do a bid'ah. He used to add to the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. At your service, at your service, at your service, and at your call. Right? Or sa'adik, and at your call. Al-khayru biyadayk, good is in your hands. وَالرَّغْبَاءُ إِلَيْكَ وَالْعَمَلُ. And I am, our desire is for you and our action. So he used to add these words. So this is a bid'ah. So, but we ask the question, is it contrary to the sunnah? The answer is no, it's not. So therefore it's sunnah in virtue of the fact that it is dhikr. In virtue of the fact that it's dhikr. So he has not legislated something new. It is that dua is legislated in general, and this is totally fine. Okay, so these are some examples of bid'ah. Now, does it make sense though that I should only do Ibn Umar's dua and not do the dua of the Prophet ﷺ? That wouldn't make any sense. So imagine if I leave the talbiyah of the Prophet ﷺ and I only do Ibn Umar's. That doesn't make sense. What if I leave Ibn Umar and I leave the Prophet ﷺ and I'm only doing some dua of some sheikh from the 8th century, right? This is where it gets a lack of balance. But if you're doing both, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Every day after Asr, you do a particular dua. It's fine. Every morning, you do this particular thing. It's totally fine. As long as it doesn't, So we're going to say, uh, technically speaking, if you didn't do the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, and you did the dua of somebody else, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because it's sunnah, right? If something is sunnah from the Prophet ﷺ, then it's not haram to leave it, is it? Right?
No.
Imagine if somebody, instead of saying Bismillah, they did some other dua that some shit. They did the dua of. They didn't say Bismillah when they ate. Okay, they're doing something that's so that, and then they just did the dua of Oran Zubair, right? So is that haram? It's like, no, it's not haram. However, you would find it a bit odd. You'd be like, bro, why are you doing this long dua? You didn't even say Bismillah, right? The Prophet ﷺ told us to say Bismillah. On so many occasions, he said, if you don't say Bismillah, the shaitan eats with you, and. So then it becomes a lack of balance. But lack of balance is not technically a fiqh issue itself, right? It's like, I mean, let's say here's this person, only goes to the masjid on Fridays. He doesn't have a beard and he just goes around doing these du'as from other people. So you're going to say he's not having a beard is makruh in the Shafi school. He's not going to the masjid is makruh, um, as long as other people are going now and then. Or he shouldn't, he's or not sunnah, you could say. And and this thing he's doing is sunnah, right? So yeah, the whole picture's off. That's true. The whole picture looks off, but you can't come along and label the whole world as off. You've got to technically say you leaving this is wrong and this is this. Every single thing has a picture. So again, there's a general reaction to everything being off, and then throw the baby out with the bath water. Every single thing the Prophet didn't do is wrong, right? So it's you know, it's not very accurate. It's not an accurate system at all. Okay, so we want to talk about this book. We don't have that much time, but basically, so this book is a modern book, but what it does is talks about bid'ah, and again talks about emphasizes the plurality, right? It talks about how pluralism. But did the Sahaba understand bid'ah in the same way? No. Did the later scholars understand bid'ah in the same way? No. But then obviously it's going to be different. So I'm just going to go through. I don't have time. I don't have to read this whole thing here. Um, so basically, he talks about bid'ah, talks about defines bid'ah, etc. And what is the exact thing? And he breaks down traditional scholars into two categories, right? People who are موسعين لمعنى bid'ah, they make it broader, or مضيقين, or they make it wide, or they make it more narrow. So, for example, the Shafi'is, they make it very narrow. It's like specifically something that is doing a new makruh or a new haram thing. That's what bid'ah, right? So let's say, for example, computer screens, right? So it's fine, but now the screen is a means for countless haram things. And so, the use of the screen in these haram things is a bid'ah. It didn't exist before, right? So basically, he breaks them into two categories, and then you find, for example, generally speaking, the Hanafis and the Malikis who are more strict. Okay. Um, And then here he wants to summarize this point here. I'll only go to this page 99. It says خلاصة الخلاف المنهجي حول البدعة, the summary of the methodological difference on how we deal with bid'ah. 99. And then he's going to go through lots of examples, which are the kind of most important thing. Right? So he says, number one, يرى بعضهم أن كل محدثة ذات صلة بالدين لها حكم يناسبها فتتدرج فتتدرج في الحكم من الوجوب إلى الحرمة وقد يسمونها بدعة حسنة وقد يصفونها حسب الحكم الذي يناسبها فيرجع الخلاف إلى اللفظ لا إلى المعنى. Okay, so some of them they say every single innovation that has some kind of connection to the deen, it has a ruling, recommended, halal, haram, etc. Right? And so فيرجع الخلاف إلى اللفظ لا إلى معنى. So the whole point of the discussion is this a bid'ah linguistically? Not is it actually a bid'ah? Is there something wrong? ويرى البعض الآخر أن المحدثات في الدين لها حكم واحد وهو الحرمة. The other groups say every new thing in religion has one ruling, which is that it's haram. فكل محدثة بدعة وكل محدث ضلالة إلى آخره. Right? والخلاف بين الفريقين خلاف حقيقي. This is an actual disagreement. Right? Here as well, وقد كان علماء المسلمين ينصحون عامتهم بأن يهجوا أو أن يهجروا أهل البدع, that they should, and generally speaking, these people not only should they do something haram, but they should also be avoided. Right? Etc. Because these people are doing something wrong. Then he goes in more, and says who's saying what. Okay, so this is this methodological difference. Then he mentions here the khulasa, summary of how the Sahaba understood new things in religion. 1, 4, 3. Okay, so it says, etc. So the summary is the Sahaba were the keenest people following the Prophet ﷺ. وكانوا يميزون بما منحهم الله عز وجل من العلم والفهم الفرق بين المحدثات الحسنة التي يشرع العمل بها والمحسنات السيئة التي يحرم أو يكره العمل بها. He says because they used to distinguish, Sahaba used to distinguish, so he's mentioned all these examples. We don't have time to go through all these examples, but they clearly distinguish between good and bad innovations, etc. So he proves that with those things. And then he goes, which is the most useful thing here, I believe, is he goes through, not an exhaustive list, but many, many lists about how the Sahaba disagreed on this issue. So again, this is promoting the whole idea. How do we view pluralism? So again, pluralism is one of the key concepts that's lost on people who, the bid'ah police. So it says الفصل الثامن نماذج من اختلاف السلف في الحكم التطبيقي للبدعة. I know we're talking about this. Okay, here, number 3. Right? رد الحديث المرسل. So should we, if a hadith is mursal, meaning a tabi'i, somebody who did not meet the Prophet ﷺ says, قال رسول الله, says the Prophet ﷺ says, or ascribes anything to the Prophet ﷺ, is this, should we reject a hadith like that or not? Salaf, they disagreed. So look at things in different ways. That's to do with deen, right? Is it right or wrong? الكلام في دقائق أعمال القلوب. Should we talk about Sufi stuff? Sufi stuff talking about like the details of khushu' and the details of tawakkul ala Allah and what it means to be close to Allah, the feeling. Should we talk about these things? Yes or no? The Salaf, they disagreed. التلفظ بالنية في الصلاة. Should we say, I intend to pray 4 rak'ah dhuhr? Or should we not say that at all? The Salaf, they disagreed. Should you say the Basmala aloud in the prayer? The Salaf, they disagreed. Should we do the Qunut al-Fajr? The Salaf, they disagreed. Some of them, again, not just disagreed, but some of them say, no, no, this is a bid'ah. This is something new. And others said, no, it's not. Al-Qunut fil witr. Some of them said it was a bid'ah. Some of them said it wasn't. وضع النعلين بين القدمين في الصلاة. Putting your shoes between your 2 feet while you're praying. Some of them said it was a bid'ah. Some of them said it wasn't. Um, الاضطجاع بعد السنة الفجر. So lying on one side after praying the 2 rak'ahs before Fajr. Is this a bid'ah? Is not? جلسة الاستراحة. Pausing while you're coming out of the first and third rak'ahs and before getting up. Is that bid'ah? Is it not? The Salaf disagreed. النداء الأول قبل زوال يوم الجمعة. Calling the first adhan on Jum'ah. Is that bid'ah? Is that not? They disagreed. So when we come along and say this is a bid'ah, we have to know what's going on. التوقيت في المسح على الخفين. Is there a particular time limit for how long you can wear your khufs? The Salaf, they disagreed. Some of them said it was a bid'ah to put a time limit. Some of them said it wasn't. So this word bid'ah is being used, but they disagreed. And they understood that they disagreed. Sunnat al-Maghrib al-Qabliya. Should you not, based on the hadith in Sahih Muslim, should you or should you not? So the hadith is there in Sahih Muslim. ألا صلوا قبل المغرب ألا صلوا قبل المغرب ألا صلوا قبل المغرب لمن شاء وكما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Right? The hadith, the Sahih Muslim is telling us pray before Maghrib. Right? So it seems very simple to us, but in reality, the Salaf disagreed. Is it a bid'ah or not? Al-Duha, Sajda al-Shukr, Salat al-Istisqa, الدعاء بعد السلام من الصلاة. And how exactly that should be done, doing a specific dua, right? So we see, for example, the Malikis, they don't do particular dua, they don't raise their hands, etc. after praying. They do the adhkar, but that's it. But, right? رفع الصوت بالتكبير في العيد. السجود على الحجر الأسود. So all these issues, doing sujood on the raising one's voice on Eid, these issues, some of the Salaf said this is a bid'ah, some of them said it wasn't. Aqiqah. Ihya Laylat Nisf Sha'ban. So somebody comes along and says, why are you doing this Sha'ban? This is a bid'ah. You say, yeah, according to some, and not according to others. So there's more than one opinion, correct? So yeah, okay. Halq al-Sharib, shaving the mustache. There's all sorts of things. So it goes on and on and on. It gives examples. خلاصة اختلاف السلف الصالح في بدع. And then he goes on to some specific issues about how we're going to disagree, etc. And so that's from the Salaf. This is now from our time to go through these different issues. And so the same concept. Number one, is there such thing as pluralism? Yes. Is there such thing as authority? Yes. Is it dhanni or is it qat'i? Is it something that we can discuss as I might be right and you might be right, or is it something that one of us is right? The answer is I might be right. It's an issue. It's a it's an issue of disagreement, and he goes through these issues. So he goes through all these various things today. And obviously Mawlid and things like that apply here, but it's the same discussion, etc., etc., etc. Happy new Hijri year. Um, and it goes on, etc. Um, so it's a very, very useful book, and it's very objective, and it's very balanced, and it's very helmy, and it gives us this picture that there's different ways of looking at um, bid'ah. It's not that simple. Um, and we find lots of these issues debated among the Sahaba. And you want to be very conservative, you can be conservative. Be more careful. If you don't want to be more careful, you see there's more benefit in not being so careful. There's a particularly useful thing to do. Wallahu a'lam. Okay, and I think um, that's basically everything I wanted to say. Do you have any questions about that?
No questions. Not right now, no.
So just one key thing to understand is nobody, doesn't matter what camp they're in, believes that anybody can legislate, can do tashri'ah, can make up the deen. The issue is whenever anybody's doing a bid'ah, they're saying this is already part of the deen in its generality, right? In its generality. So they're either saying, no, this is established, the other person saying it's not established, or they're saying, no, this is generally recommended, right? Or generally obligatory. And so I'm not inventing anything. This is not something new. Um, this is, this is legislated in its generality, right? So forms of dhikr is recommended. So any form of dhikr then would be recommended unless it's prohibited, right? Unless there's something wrong with it. Any good, however you do it, is going to be good unless it leads to something bad or something else. It doesn't have to specifically fit a particular mold, etc. Inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك